Welcome to the Morse Code Podcast, where we talk with entrepreneurially minded creatives in music, film, and writing. My name's Corby, and I'm hoping these conversations inspire you to push deeper into your own work, whether you're a full-time professional or just starting out on your own creative odyssey. Our next guest is the frontman for the biggest voiced trio you will ever hear live. The Lone Bellow exploded onto the scene in 2014 with their self-titled debut. Everybody loved this record. People magazine put it at number 8 on their top 10 albums of the year list. Entertainment Weekly, always a little fuzzy with their genres, called it one of the top reasons to love country music. Okay. This decidedly non-country trio moved to Nashville in 2016, made a bunch more records, and shortly after this taping, performed a special live concert with the Nashville Symphony Orchestra. A founding member and frontman, Zach Williams, sat down with me to talk about the beginning of his songwriting career, which was prompted by an acute bit of family tragedy. I'll let the man tell it. I'll also let him tell you about perception versus reality when it comes to the rock star lifestyle. Let me put it a different way. I wanted to know what he imagined a successful career to look like versus what it eventually became. Zach was a solid hang and a thoughtful guest. If you get something out of the Morse Code Podcast, please take a second to like and subscribe and do the 5 stars and write a short review or one of those things or all of them. It helps a lot. And now here's my conversation with Zach Williams. Zach Williams of the Lone Bellow. You're here, and I've been looking forward to this for like 2 months since Eric reached out. Thanks for your time in advance, man.
Nice.
I have a lot of things I want to ask you about, and a lot of times I kind of start these things off with an origin type story, but I thought maybe we'd do something different since you have something really exciting coming up, which is a gig with the Nashville Symphony Orchestra at the Schermerhorn.
Yeah.
And I might
Schermerhorn.
The Schermerhorn, which you don't learn how to pronounce until you've been here 10 years.
Yeah.
You can quote me on that. But I want to know, this is kind of just my own interest, like how did this happen? Are you excited about it first?
Yes.
It seems very exciting.
I'm super duper excited. Yeah, I mean, we played the Kennedy Center in DC a few years ago, and that's when we got our feet wet with playing with the symphony. Mm-hmm. And then 6 months ago, we played with the Colorado Symphony, and they wrote a score or 18 songs deep. And at the end of the show, they were just like, "Hey, this is yours now." It was insane. They worked on it for 8 months.
One guy, usually it's a string arranger.
There was a few different arrangers.
Wow.
So I guess the symphony community it's a tight-knit crew.
Yeah.
In the different cities, they all know each other. So somehow they got a hold of the Nashville Symphony, and they were like, "We've already done all the hard work. You just have to read it and play it." So
one symphony reached out to another.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think they enjoyed working with us and told the Nashville Symphony guys that, I don't know, we're a good hang or something. So we're doing it. I'm pumped.
Yeah, man. So is it going to be the same scenario? And this is my second question was in a situation like that, somebody's working behind the doors to create the arrangements for the songs, and probably those arrangements and your performance has got to be there's no variation. They can't be because these are the scores.
Yeah.
Are the rehearsals, is it just that afternoon, one rehearsal?
One rehearsal,
yeah,
right before you go on. The Colorado Symphony wrote all of their music. We gave them live recordings of all of our songs that we wanted to do, because we play them a little different than how they are on the record. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we just stuck to that map. But it is really weird. I think the strangest part is there's no drum set, so percussion comes from different noises. Mm-hmm. So that was I was paying attention to the dude with the stick a lot. I was okay, all right, that's the beat. Okay.
So that's interesting. So he's conducting you in a way.
Yeah,
well.
Totally.
You're not just plowing ahead and hoping that he keeps up. You're did he ask for that, or was that your intuition about how to best do it?
He told me that. We showed up and he was like, this is how this will work. And I was like, great.
It's his show.
Great. Because I just do what my drummer says anyway. So now I'll just do what you say. So, yeah, man. I mean, it was beautiful. I remember, like, it was the last time I saw my uncle. My uncle passed away right after that. And he was able to come out to the Colorado Symphony show. And it was just so fun. And this one, like, we made a record at RCA with Dave Cobb like several years ago and wrote the song for my oldest daughter called May You Be Well. And Dave put all of these, like basically a full symphony sound behind it. And Loretta's never seen that live. It only happened in Colorado. So I'm really excited about her seeing this like 70-piece orchestra play her song.
Yeah, man.
It's going to be fun.
That's an honor. And maybe she'll start to cotton to what her dad's been doing all these years.
Yeah.
Is she a fan?
Yeah, she's a sweetie. She goes to Hume Fogg, which is a killer public school right next to the Ryman. She's I have 4 kids. She's a sophomore. And yeah, she's a sweet kid.
This is maybe a great opportunity to dive into the origin story, because I feel like then when you were just starting out with the band, were you a dad yet or close too?
Yeah, so my origin story, I started writing songs at this hospital down in Buckhead, Georgia. My wife had fallen off a horse and she broke her neck and was like diagnosed a quadriplegic, and they had these like little apartments next to the hospital, and I had to go home every night at 9:00 and like leave her. And my friends came up and they're all like thespians and stuff, and they're like, hey, you should, I would read them my journal entries because I was like going numb because it was like this outer body experience. I could tell that I was losing my feeling. So I was writing about it, and then I would read it to them in hopes of feeling something. I think it's just like going through like trauma or whatever.
Sure.
And they were like, you should learn how to play the guitar and sing at the same time and just find an open mic and just experience like the kindness of strangers. And I thought about it, and I figured it out. Learn how to play the guitar and sing at the same time. And I just went down. It was a Starbucks. It was like in the fall.
Would this been what year?
This is like 2003. So it smelled like pumpkin spice lattes, and there's like
Beginning of the craze.
knee-high chalkboards with funny coffee jokes written on it, and everybody in the open mic like looked like they only own futon furniture. And
Seems
that vibe,
right. Yeah.
you can smell them. And I tried to play, totally learned, totally forgot how to like play, like freaked out, cried, kind of came back to, then remembered the shape of the G chord. Then I just played the G chord over and over and just read the journal entry. There was no chorus or anything. And that was the first time that I like started crying during the whole like months long thing. And I looked out and like everybody was crying with me, these strangers. And I was just like, oh, this is cathartic. That's where I like really fell in love with shows and songwriting. And I moved up to New York. We made a pact with our buddies, like if a miracle happens and Stacy gets better, let's all move up to New York City together. We were all friends. We were all fans of Seinfeld and Friends and How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days and freaking When Harry Met Sally. There was a
template for what your big city existence could look like.
Exactly. Yeah. I was like, all right, I'm going to get a Triumph Bonneville. I'm going to be able to take my shirt off in public like Matthew McConaughey. And I'm going to work at an ad agency. I'm going to sell magazines. No. So she miraculously got better.
Full recovery.
Full recovery.
Amazing.
So we all moved up to Brooklyn, and I played shows just solo for about 7 years, and then put the band together in like 2011.
Were you trying to quote unquote make it in those 7 years, or were you serious? Like, I'm a singer songwriter now. This is my calling.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's honestly a miracle that my wife stayed with me, because we were so broke, and the first 5 years I was lucky to have more people out in the crowd than on stage.
Yeah.
You play like Irish pubs that like wouldn't turn the sound of the basketball game down while you're like tearfully singing your sad love songs.
How many gigs have I played? So I'm ringing a little too true.
But it's a
rite of passage, though. You got to go through that stuff.
You got to do it.
Tests your mettle. How
I know,
bad
and
do
I
you
think
want
about
this?
like I meet people now that are like trying to make it on like social media, and I'm like, man, that sucks. Like, it was so much more fun just like out in the dirt, like out in the world, trying to create a following,
Yeah,
in human form.
there was a lot more variable, a lot more uncontrolled circumstances when you're out there doing it like that, especially like person to person. You never know who you're going to meet, who you're going to befriend, what club you're going to like. Oh, I like it here for whatever reason.
Yeah,
all that stuff, as opposed to this highly controlled environment that is the screen of your phone, which is my phone's exactly like yours, exactly like Kyle's. It's, not a lot of opportunity for chance happenings out there.
It's true.
That's tough for the kids. I
know. I mean, I hope open mics were just such a great thing. Like the one in Atlanta, I was living in Florida at the time, so when she left the hospital, we moved back to Florida for like 6 months, and like the open mic community was so fun. And then the one in Brooklyn was so West Palm. And
is there a particular club that
Daas
deserves a shout out? Cool.
Yeah, Daas, which was in Boca Raton, which means the mouth of the rat, which I think is a funny name to name a place.
Yeah.
But it's Florida,
It's typical.
It makes sense. But yeah, man, that open mic thing was just, it's so communal.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you did it. Like,
I totally did it. It was
you stay
fundamental
up all night
to my doing this.
Yeah, people get up and play 1 or 2 songs. You got to be real quiet. Then afterwards, you go outside and you ask them how they felt, and did it like. So fun.
You all play for each other, and you also kind of get to see like, am I crazy for doing this? Mm-hmm. It's impossible not to be like, well, I'm better than her, or she's better than me. Or,
and you can go around and tell them all like, I'm better than you. I'm just kidding.
It's a good way to get ahead in this business.
Communal. That's the real heart of the open mic community.
No, but it's a great way of feedback in real time, especially when you're starting out, because you're just under all kinds of delusions.
Yeah. Totally. And then there's a guy named Ken Rockwood that like took me under his wing. And the year that I moved to New York was the same year that he opened up his club called Rockwood Music Hall. Yeah. You ever played Rockwood?
Of course. I love Rockwood.
So Ken like totally took me under his wing, and he tried to get me, he had an imprint label with Atlantic in the mid 2000s, and he tried to get me.
What was that called? I think I remember that.
I don't know what it was called. I just know that Pete Gambarg was the guy in charge, and he was such a wiener. He was like, what did he say to me? He's like, oh, I like your songs. He's like, I don't want to have to wait for the next tragedy to happen to you for you to write another good song, though. And I was like, well, neither do I. And he was like, yeah, so it's not going to work out. And I was like, ew.
Wow. Encouragement comes in so many forms, And
I forgot flavors. My capo, and I was like on the 34th. It was like the Hudsucker Proxy like, highest floor of the building at Atlantic Records. It was like that whole feeling. And I forgot my capo, and he got mad. And then Ken Rockwood's mother, who was like in her 90s, like queen of the Lower East Side, literally broke into the building the next week. Like, she's an old lady. Nobody stopped her. And she went all the way up to Pete Gambarg's hoity-toity office on the top floor and was just like, "You really screwed it up with that Zach kid." And it was awesome.
And Pete listened.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, he was like, "Get out." No, I didn't sign with him. No.
Oh, that's amazing, though. And so I feel like important in a young artist's life to have somebody who believes in them at some point along the way, and who's like making a call on your behalf. Because prior to that, it's just your own efforts, and no one listens to someone who calls on their own behalf. I know personally.
Dude.
I know you do too.
Yeah, you got to like, "Hey, this is Brian. I'm calling on behalf of Zach."
Oh, dude, I've done it all. I've set up fake email addresses. Looking for, inquiring, Corby, my artist, is going to be passing through St. Louis in November. We're just looking for some avails.
Yes.
And then inevitably, like you're following the thread, and weeks later you sign off as Corby. You like forget, and then now it's out there. You're exposed. Yeah. All the lessons you learn the hard way or otherwise. So, okay. So you get a little bit of momentum going, and then where in the journey, like with Ken, did you meet Brian and Kanene?
Yeah. So Brian and I grew up in Georgia together. Brian was the first person I was ever around that like wrote songs, and we lived in a house together. And he was the first person to like tell me to try to sing in front of people. He's always been just like that type of friend.
Yeah.
So Brian moved to New York like 5 or 6 years after I did. He was doing his own thing. He was here in Nashville for a while. He had this thing called the Circus or something. And it was just like drugs and music, and the drummer had like an actual monkey that was on his back while he played. I don't know if that rings any bells, but
I would remember.
Yeah, right. I think that like Holly Williams and that whole crew was like kind of part of it. Which is funny now because she's like White's Mercantile, like crazy business owner. But anyway, yeah. So he moved to New York. He had his own project for a while. I went through like a season in my marriage where we like everything fell apart. We just broke each other's hearts, and it was awful. And I had this band of like McGill graduate Canadian jazz players, and they were sweet as can be, but they never said no to anything. It was just very like, "You're the boss, we'll do," and it was just really boring. And I really wanted to figure out how to be like a spoke in a wheel. So I started writing these sad songs and hiding them in like kind of like country music melodies. And 2011, I just put together like a morning rehearsal. I had met Kanene here in Nashville a few years before because we sang together in her brother's wedding, but she was living in Beijing at the time. So she moved from Beijing to New York. And really when she moved to New York, that's when I was like, I don't want to have my own band anymore. And we started singing together. When we started out, there was 8 of us. There was 3 Brians in one band, which was fun.
Easy for communication.
And we made our first record at Rockwood Music Hall. Ken gave us
I've read that.
the room for 3 days and 3 nights.
2, 3, 1, the 3 down low?
2.
2.
Yeah. Yeah, one. The little one downstairs didn't exist yet. Yeah, I mean, he lost so much money being closed for 3 days and 3 nights in New York. Like, it was amazing, just like what he did for us. But anyways, we made that first record there with Charlie Peacock.
He came up
He came up. He was
with
the
a
one
bunch
that,
of gear and stuff. Like
he turned it into a studio.
Yeah.
Him and Richie, his right hand man, turned it into a mobile studio, but then we sat on that record for 2 years.
Maybe I ask you this: how did you meet Charlie?
Charlie,
because he's for people not in the know. I mean, he's kind of a Nashville legend, a production legend, and CCM, and also other huge projects.
Yeah, which worried me.
Sure,
but
it was Joy Williams was hitting big with her project right around then too.
Yeah.
So, and that was like probably some peace of mind there.
It's funny that you mentioned that. So the Civil Wars had just gotten together. They needed a place to stay while they were playing a show in New York. And a friend of a friend gave them my contact. So Joy and Nate stayed at my apartment. And I think that's how it ended up happening. But I had a nice, healthy thing going in New York before the Lone Bellow. Like I could sell out the Bowery Ballroom, but I never toured outside of the city at all. And I think that, like, you know, it just made that story kind of made its way into Charlie's peripheral. And he like flew me down to meet with him at his house when he ran the art house.
Yeah, I've been out there,
wherever it is. And I mean, I was smitten. I was like, wow, look at this place. So yeah, that's how.
Nice. So he came up, you guys made the record together, and then you said you sat on it for 2 years.
Sat on it for 2 years, and we just played the record in New York for 2 years. So then the way that we, like, this is back when you like needed a record label to like move the needle. So then we were like, let's put together a show at Bowery Ballroom. We'll sell it out, and we'll invite the record execs, and we'll trick them. They'll be tricked. They'll think that we can do this anywhere. And it worked. They showed up, and it was an amazing night. My friends, the Gregory brothers, opened, and nobody knew who they were, but they had just started a YouTube channel called Auto-Tune the News, and they had a song about a double rainbow, and they had another song that was like, hide your kids, hide your wife.
Remember
that?
Yeah.
So just imagine, like, you're on stage playing, nobody knows who you are. You're playing your songs that nobody knows. And then you're like, by the way, this is us. And went into Double Rainbow, and the room just exploded. And then we had our, these friends of ours from our open mic community open next. And there was Lucius, but it was before their first record came out. So it was just like, the night could not have gone better. It was insane. And that's like what started a little bidding war, and we did all the fancy crap. Went out to LA and met with, you know, all of the Warner Brothers and all those dudes with like silk shirts on with flames on their silk shirts.
And had you decided at that point, when other people started getting really interested, that you wanted to really be a spoke in a wheel as opposed to the Zach Williams and band project? Because it started out, right? It was
Zach Williams and the Bellow.
And the Bellow.
Yeah.
What?
So,
I'm just curious about this too, before you say this. As somebody who's been part of bands and solo projects, and am in love with bands, I think that bands are the most special thing in the world, and that are most in danger in the current environment, because it's so difficult to keep a band employed, particularly on the road.
Yeah.
But the uniqueness of the interplay between specific personalities is so special, and greater than the sum of its parts, as the expression goes. So you said at some point there was 8-piece band doing who was in and who was out. And this, if I'm prying, it's in.
No, it's
fine.
great.
I'm just
It's
curious
great.
about the process.
Well, so when we started the band, like that was a big like MO of mine. I was like, hey, I want to be a spoken wheel. Like, I'm sick of being just like the lead guy. I want like pushback and da-da-da-da. But the name of the band is Zach Williams and the Bellow. And they're like, okay. And
I want pushback.
I know.
I
know. And I was like, but I'm still arrogant. And honestly, and like I never tell this story because it makes me sound, or maybe it like shows my true colors, but I was seriously thinking about taking my name out of the band and calling it the Lone Bellow. We were in the process of signing with Sony. Like we had hired our manager, who was crazy and fun. And we had our lawyer, like everything was all lined up. And then Atlantic Records and Rolling Stone did a collaboration together where it was like a battle of the bands. And if you won, you got the cover of the Rolling Stone and you got a record deal. You got like, I think like a $500,000 like old school record deal. And they were like, you will win. Like, this is like it's not rigged, but it's rigged. And I was like, okay. And they're like, but you have to do Zach Williams. You can't do this new project that you're working on. They don't want that. And I just had this like life altering moment where I had to like kind of put my money where my mouth is and just be like, okay, it really is over now. I'm going to say no to this. And I think some band called the Sheepdogs got it. Something about sheep and dogs. And then that was the catalyst that was like, I really do want my name out of the band. Because I could tell that there was better creativity to be had if I did that.
Yeah.
And
like kind of platformed your
dude,
bandmates on the same level and gave them.
Yeah, but like the manager was like, you're ruining your life. The lawyer said the same thing, like everybody. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it could have been better. I don't know. But it was just more fun and more exciting to just call it the Lone Bellow and just do that.
Yeah. I'd imagine more meaningful too, in a way, especially you'd had it the one way for so long, you knew what that was. Mm-hmm. And to be like, wow, what if I'm just one of the Musketeers?
Yeah.
It could be cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And then starting
just
to tour
really quickly, I just want to say that like it turned out that that's the signature sound. I mean, that's to me what sets the Lone Bellow apart from everything else out there is you three singing.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary.
And we kind of accidentally like, you know how like people ask you all the time, like, how did you get the band name? And you have to like, I Heart Huckabees, repeat the story over and over until you throw up.
I didn't ask because I went and looked it up. So we're here now.
But like, it's the lone sound. It's a bellow as a sound. It's the lone sound. So like, it just kind of fell together. It was like, oh, this sound happens when the three of us sing together. And it can't happen if the three of us aren't singing together. And then like touring with Brian and Kanene especially, and like just being challenged by their creativity and humility and kindness, it was like completely life altering. Mm-hmm. And it still is. We're like 6 records deep and we're all like raising our kids together here in East Nashville, and it is an honor to be a spoken wheel with them.
It's beautiful, man. There's so many pivots I could go to here, but I'm curious about I saw you guys not too long ago. I guess it was maybe a couple of years. I saw Robert Ellis opened. It was during the Texas Troubadour record. Maybe like 19 now.
Yeah.
It was the Basement East, and it was sold out.
That was killer.
It was killer show. And it was so huge. the you three singing. I've never heard a band sing just so big at a show. And then when I went to listen to the records, I'm like, oh, this reflects that. It was like big singing on a record. And then as I got like listening to more of the tracks and stuff, there's I started hearing other things come up, like the Honey, the single, that track. That was a much different approach than like Dried Up River.
Yeah.
And I wanted you to talk. I'm just curious about that.
Yeah.
And what that experience was. Was that a decision thing from the producer? Was that you guys being like, let's make something that's like a chill version of what we do?
I think it was a mix. I think that we were like, at the point in our career, we were like, when we hit the big notes, that's us resting on what we've already made.
Yeah.
So it's like not as scary. It's like the big notes for us are like kind of easier. So the challenge for us was like, and really, I think the first person that really brought it up was Aaron Dessner from The National. When we made our second record with him, he was like, I think you guys should try to write songs that are good enough without the roller coaster vocals. And
roller coaster vocals.
And he like did a thing. He would always make fun of us, and
he didn't mean that as a compliment. Exactly.
No. He was like, stop yelling at me. So yeah. So then when we produced our own record after that, we really wanted to try that again. Now, of course, we gave in to our temptations, and by the bridge, we're like, yep, cross-eyed screaming into your brain, but it's quiet for a long time.
For a long time,
as long as we could.
2/3 of the way.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. No, so that was from the self-produced record, Honey.
Honey's from the self-produced record.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And how is that different, self-producing, rather than having somebody from the outside be like, hey, let's shape this way?
Man, our first record was Charlie Peacock. Our second record was Aaron Dessner. Our third record was Dave Cobb. Our fourth record was Aaron Dessner. We always went with these like really popular producers. And we realized that like a part of the reason is because it was out of fear. And Brian brought it up. He was like, I think that we should try to produce our own record next. And at first we were like, you're crazy, because we fight,
Yeah.
And it's so good to have that person that's not in the band be like, hey guys, da, da, da. So we were really worried that we wouldn't be able to like get through it because of just how passionate we all are about different things. And then during the pandemic, I got way into this guy named Braxton Dixon. He passed away years ago, but he built like 55 houses around Nashville. Like his first one when he was 14 and his last one when he was 93. And he would do a road trip whenever he was building a house, and he would collect all the crap that he built the house out of off of the road trip. So like old barns and all da-da-da-da. So he built like a lot of Johnny Cash houses, Roy Orbison's house that burned down, that his two sons died in. I mean, Tammy Wynette's house burned down. So many of them burned down. But anyways, I went and met his sweet widow, who lives in one of the houses. I mean, she's like Grey Gardens of the South.
Yeah.
Like,
Picture it.
I think that her property has been for sale for like 10 years now, and she comes dead or alive with the property. Just like wild, wonderful people. But she told my buddy Matt Marr about Roy Orbison's other house that's next to the burned down Johnny Cash house. And Orbison had him build him another house, even after that one house burned down, which whatever.
Some house.
Yeah. So we reached out to the owner, and he gave us the house. We made it a studio. He gave us the house for 2 months. and Matt Marr made a record there, and we made a record there, and Brian produced, and it was just so fun. We just like, it was out on the lake in Hendersonville, and it's just like the houses are like, it's like a Frank Lloyd Wrong. Like Marty Stewart was the last person to own the Roy Orbison house, and like the Johnny Cash house had a creek going through the middle of it.
Yeah,
and, I mean, it's just like
but
nothing
house,
worked. Yeah, in the house, but like there would be like copperheads in the house because of the creek. Like nothing totally worked.
Yeah.
Anyway,
great artist house. So I imagine one of the reasons why that was a positive experience was the feeling of this is on our own time a little bit, less of a sense of the pressure of time. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, it was the first time that we actually had time to work on the vocals since Charlie Peacock. Peacock did a great job. Like we spent weeks working on the vocals. Aaron and Cobb, they love the music. So we did all the music there, and then they're like, "Oh, do the vocals." And it's like, that's like what we do. So this time we were able to, Kanene produced the vocals. She like really was able to coach me and coach Brian and just really use her skills to do that. And
so great to be able to hand that off and trust your bandmate to be like, oh, this is going to be the best version of what this is supposed to be.
It's really truly, it's a beautiful thing. It really is. Yeah.
So I think that you mentioned you agreed to these terms when you signed that contract that you'd play a song maybe in the studio.
Oh yeah.
Is that cool?
I brought my guitar.
I see it. It's perfect.
I didn't know that you'd have 80 guitars in here. No.
Yeah, there's no place like your own axe. But maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you're going to play and set it up.
Well, I mean, I spent a lot of time talking on the origin story. I could play the very first song I ever wrote.
That's great.
That's from that journal entry.
Let's hear it.
I like figured out how to make it a chorus and like do it.
That's beautiful.
My backyard's filled with nothing less than paisley eyes and rusted specks, the genuine filtered times of silence chimes and weathered minds. Your peace is here, it is so deep, like crayon covered paper sheets. Rhymes with love, it's blindly heat, it knows no other home but me. It's you. Oh, it's you. So grab your sweater, I'll grab my keys, and you grab your cap and shoes, and we'll leave. Maybe that's what she needs to hear. Maybe that's what she needs. This polished room of butterflies, they're cold and wet, not ever dry. These windows in this creepy place have carved out future tragic shapes of tearful thoughts and hopeless times. It knows no other faith so blind. It whispers deep till I can't sleep. This room it begs for you to keep, but you, oh, but you grab your sweater, I grab my keys, you grab your cap and shoes, and we'll leave. Maybe that's what she needs to hear. Maybe that's what she needs. Oh. I listened to a lot of Sweet Melissa when I was a kid. Don't fall asleep. I'll grab my scarf, my coat, my keys. Don't fall asleep. I'll grab my scarf, my coat, my keys. Oh, don't fall asleep. I'll grab my scarf, my coat, my keys. Maybe that's what she needs to hear. Maybe that's what she needs.
That was fantastic, man. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you've been doing this for a long time, right? And this is one of the reasons why it's so fun to have seasoned artists who are like in the middle of their career here, because you have a lot coming and you've had a lot behind you as well. And I wondered this about you when I was thinking about you coming over, but when you're young and you are starting out, you have this vision of what being a rock star is going to be, and you're going to make it. And then at some point you've made it, or a version of it. Mm-hmm. And then I think that maybe it becomes something different. It has for me, even in my little way, where I'm like, oh, I'm in my life now. Like what do I want this to look like, as much insofar as I'm capable? And I wonder if you have gone through a process like that in your journey, like what's changed?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to see like a caricature of yourself for a while.
Rolling Stone cover, for instance, easy one to go to. Yeah.
Like, I think I didn't learn how to play the guitar and sing until I was like 23. So I didn't have any ambition to do any of that. I was just going to work for my family in Georgia and just like join a softball team or something.
Sounds pretty good.
I mean, it sounds pretty cool. But I think the very first time that I heard Trouble by Ray LaMontagne, I know exactly where I was. I stopped the car. I was just like, I want to do that.
Yeah. I remember where I was too. I mean,
really?
That's in one of those records. Yeah. I mean, that moment in the beginning of that whole record was like a time and a place in music history.
Right?
Crazy.
It was a moment. It really was. Same thing happened. First time I heard Billie Eilish, I know exactly where I was.
Bad Guys?
No, it wasn't the Bad Guy. It was that record. It was in another one. I can't remember which song, but like same thing.
Yeah.
I was like on that bridge on Shelby. I was like, she's going to take over the universe. But yeah, I think I just wanted to give it a shot. In my mind, I had a late start because like 20 years ago, like age, and maybe I was imagining it, but like I was like, oh, you only have a certain window to be able to make music, and I gotta fit all this in before I'm 29.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's different now? Just as a quick aside, I do too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Continue.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember like when we first started coming out, like I didn't want anybody to know how old I was. Like I think when the first Lone Bellow record came out, I think I was like 31, and I was like embarrassed about that. Mm-hmm. I was like, I don't want people to know I'm 31 and that I have 3 kids. But now, like, I don't think
a
anybody
badge of
cares.
honor or something.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
like
know.
whatever. Anyway, I got sidetracked, but yeah, I think it's really easy, especially after you like quote unquote make it, to be like, okay, now people see this version of me, this version from, like, for me, my first record with all the songs are about my wife and I's horrifying relationship and how terrible it was and so sad. And I was like, okay, I got to stay sad. And then it was getting boring. And then my wife and I weren't sad anymore. We made it through. And I remember I was having coffee with like a hero lead singer guy of mine. Like, I couldn't believe that he sat down and had coffee with me. And he was like, hey, it's way harder to write out of joy than it is out of pain. But you should do it. And I don't know, I think that's when I realized, like, I am just being a version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think over the past few years, I'm like,
What else
now
is out
living
there?
my real life, like, oh, I really enjoy mowing the lawn a lot.
Mm-hmm.
My whole family makes fun of me for it, but
I think that happens. You know, like I have a fondness for lawns myself. I
You
never
do?
thought I would. Oh yeah, totally. I have opinions about it. See some guy's nicely tended grass. I kind of want to know his secret.
dude, you know what I did? I spent all of my family's money. My wife is still mad at me about it right now, on irrigation.
Oh,
I dropped it, dude. We
at
got
the Nashville house here.
yeah. I got only in the front yard. Backyard's completely trashed.
By irrigation, you mean underground sprinkling or something
dude.
else? Oh man, I'm so jealous.
You should be.
I'm about to call for an estimate.
When
I
they
just kind
come
of want
on,
to know.
it's like playing with a symphony. You just stand out in your front yard.
So
and
much gratification.
Look at all your neighbors that don't have irrigation.
Yeah.
You're just like, you are
Suckers.
drowning in heat, and I'm better than you.
And the grass. I mean, we're deep.
it doesn't look great. It's a little too patchy.
That might be the fertilizer. Who knows?
But the
Anyway,
water looks great
Yeah.
when it's going.
yeah, rainbows in the front yard.
Yeah.
Total double rainbow. So you somehow managed to strike a balance somewhere along the way between this like the perpetual now of songdom. This is how I think about songs, like performing songs. There's something about people who are gifted performers have this ability to channel something of a whole life into a single moment and deliver that feeling to an audience. You know, I think that's what sets great artists apart performing wise from other people. But by the same token, it's very easy to be seduced by that moment and not be able to ever really step out of it or want to be in it all the time. And that moment is like consuming. It's not real. It's not sustainable. And to be able to I feel like people who have some kind of longevity as human beings, much less artists, have some ability to step in and out of that incredible fire.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Totally. I mean, it reminds me of that. You know that White Light song by Wilco? There's a
Yes.
white light.
Yes.
The words are like, if you feel like singing a song and you want others to sing along, just sing what you feel. And then it's like, don't let anyone say it's wrong. And if you feel like painting a picture, but you can't, you don't know where the colors belong, just paint what you feel. Don't let anyone say it's wrong. And then the last verse is like, and when the whole world's singing your song, and it says something, I can't remember the words, but it says something along the lines of, it's theirs now. It is now their song. And you're just like a piece of the universal puzzle. And that's where I want to live. That's like a goal, right? Just to like be like a, I don't know, like a piece of it.
Yeah.
I love that song.
To be able to give that away, I mean, that's really hard to do because you made that thing and you made it so well that all of a sudden the whole world is singing with it. And to
Yeah.
be like, okay, it's yours now. That's a beautiful and very spiritually evolved place to be, I feel like.
I know, he's so smart. Jeff Tweedy, man.
Yeah, he's kind of a genius. Yeah, that was another one, a band moment that changed the world forever was I'm Trying to Break Your Heart. When that doc came out, it just was what happened that year, I feel like, in music.
A Ghost Was Born, was that before or after?
Yeah. And I have really strong opinions about this for a second because a big part of the through line of that story told in I'm Trying to Break Your Heart was really about Jeff Tweedy. I'm remembering this 20 years later, and listeners write in and tell me where I'm wrong, really asserting himself as the leader of the band, because it's this push and pull between him and Jay Bennett, the guitar player, one of the guitar players in that band. There's this scene like in there where he's talking about how every circle needs a center. And anyway, he ends up in the course of that doc, kicking Bennett out of the band. And they go on to be like the Tweedy Center thing. Very sad ending for Jay Bennett after that. And Ghost Is Born, I think, was the next record that came out after that. And I feel like, I mean, this is, whatever. As a big fan of Wilco, there's a before and after Jay, and I love the early records, man. I mean, Summer Teeth and that, and I feel like it's partly because of that crazy tension between these two like warring egos. Sometimes one won, sometimes the other one. And after Tweedy won forever, it all kind of is like still great music, but it somehow didn't have that clash, that internal conflict in it that I found so scintillating.
I mean, that music too, like when I was trying to move from Florida to New York, like it was like, get me out of FLA.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, seriously, like right now. Like when we first started, I like wanted to know every ticket sale at every city. I read every review. I read every bad comment, and I was losing my mind. And my good friends were like, you're really hard to be around. So I was like, I won't ever do that again. So I don't ever read anything. Sometimes like a new tour manager will be like, this is how many tickets. And I'll be like, I don't want to know. I don't want to find out until we're on stage. And then I don't want to talk about it.
I get it, man. I mean, it's a lot to take on.
Yeah.
And it's not helpful to the music.
I think like I listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't know if it's my age or if it's just the culture right now, but like I go on a long drive. Like I'm either listening to a book or a podcast, and I'll take a break and like slam some freaking Brockhampton or something for a minute. But I mostly just like listen to people having conversations.
It's crazy that it's as fun as it is.
I know.
No one would have called that. Drop some pods that you're interested in right now.
Drop some pods.
I don't know if
That
that's the
should be
thing
like a
people
thing.
say. I just made that up.
It's your thing. You should say it now. Now we're gonna drop.
No,
some
I'm not
pods.
convinced. It's a good way to put it.
Oh man, I'm so awful. I don't pay attention to what things are called.
I mean,
I love The Moth.
Okay, the radio hour. Yeah, dude, that's great.
I love Mortified.
Don't know that one.
Mortified is a live studio audience. Maybe that doesn't count as a podcast. But anyways, people get up and read their journal entries from middle school, no matter what. And it's insane. And then they talk about it afterwards. It's amazing.
You wouldn't have called that. I wouldn't have thought that was it's as addictive listening as it sounds like it might be.
Bro. It's berserk. It's so fun. But yeah, I mean, I love Smartless. Except for when they interviewed LeBron James. They were like goo goo gaga over him. Like I was uncomfortable on behalf of LeBron James.
Yeah.
Listening.
I didn't
I know
catch
they're
that one, but I
listening
can
to this.
imagine.
Jason Bateman, you should be ashamed of yourself.
God, keep it in. Jeez, dude.
He's a sweet guy.
He seems by all accounts.
My buddy did Ozark with him. And just loved working with him.
What was he in Ozark? I saw them all.
He was do you remember there was two brothers and they died in a boat?
Yes.
They got electrocuted?
Yes.
He was the one with the big hair, the big beard that had like a romantic relationship with the FBI guy.
Oh yeah, that was him.
That was him.
That was a cool role.
But
I felt like that guy was kind of a complicated character.
He died, but Jason loved having him around so much that they kept bringing him back as a ghost. So he would like come back and like play like a John Prine song and just kind of fade away. Like,
So
and
good.
It really was because Jason just enjoyed Menchaca being around.
Yeah. I mean, that just goes to show you always be cool on set, because even if your guy's killed off, you never know.
You never know
if you're fun to be around, man.
And Menchaca always gets killed off. That dude dies in every single thing I ever see.
That's a sign of fine character acting, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
They got to kill you off to get rid of you. Well, dude, this has been really fun, and dare I say, exceeded my expectations only because you're really the first time that we've had a guest here that I didn't kind of know personally in advance in some way. So thanks for being so forthcoming and indulgent even.
Dude, I'm just glad it wasn't a Zoom.
Oh God, I'm that's not loud here. I don't like those.
No, sir.
It's nice to have a little actual air to share. Yeah, for sure. But this will actually air after the symphony show.
Oh, cool.
Just in about a month.
We'll be in the middle of our we're doing a request only tour where there's, I don't know how it works, but there's some website where like each city can choose the set list for the show. So we'll be in the middle.
Very
of
cool. It's some kind of interactive code.
Yeah, it's like whatever gets the most votes, top to bottom, becomes the set list.
How deep's the pool to choose from, or is it you just write it in?
Well, it's like it's our 88 songs that we've recorded over the years. There's always someone that doesn't read closely, and they think that it's just like a cover song tour. I'm like, no, guys, we're not learning 18 cover songs a night for 2 months.
That sounds really fun, man. In a way to get everybody involved. And
it'll be fun, especially because one of the biggest arguments with the band is set lists. Because like I'm drawn towards the like Sadness Abounds, like 6-8 songs. Brian and Kanene's just smarter than the both of us, but Brian is drawn towards the like 4 on the floor, like fun songs. So I'm excited about the actual audience being able to pick. Yeah. And then it'll just be like, who's right?
Man, thanks for your time. I wish you the best for this next leg. And I hope that your requested songs win.
Dude, thanks for having me. Smartless, sorry about the bash. It's just the Leon or whatever his name is. No, thanks for having me, man.
Peace, brother.
The Morse Code podcast is produced by Corby Linker and Jared Hammond in East Nashville, Tennessee. Our executive producer is Randa Newman. You can find full videos for this and all previous episodes at morsecodepodcast.com.